Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me today. It's Allan Laboucan from the Rocks and Stocks News Show. It's my weekend show. Been a couple of weeks. I hope you missed me. I miss talking to my audience about what's going on in the markets. And so we'll get back to the regular schedule. Before I get started, I want to remind everybody that this show is brought to you by my gold sponsor, Pirate Gold. And I'm really happy to have them on as the gold sponsor, sort of a title sponsor, if you will. As you can see up there, they're in all my content now, which is part of the sponsorship. And they have a very large land package, in Newfoundland, that's highly prospective for gold, high grade gold, orogenic gold, intrusion related gold. And they're in the midst of a 50,000 meter drill program that's fully funded. And I think they're going to have a lot of news for the foreseeable future. So it's a good time to do your homework on Pirate Gold. Okay, so as I said, I've been away for a little while, which is why I haven't done a weekend show for a couple weeks now. The reason for that is I went to the PDAC, the Prospectors and Developers Conference in Toronto. That was 2 weekends ago. And last weekend, I flew out to see my son and my mom in near Vancouver. So I've been kind of out of the saddle, but I'm back in the saddle now. And first of all, why don't I give you a little rundown on what I saw when I was at the PDAC? There was a lot of people. It was a record. I think 33,000 or close to it attendees this year, which was quite impressive. The energy, though, was not the same as back in 2024 when I went. And gold at that time was just breaking above 2,100 and starting a series of record highs that I had predicted prior to it. If you don't believe me, just go to my Substack. You can find all those reports. And then there was a lot of energy at that show. This one was a little more subdued, and I think part of that was I saw a lot of what I call flavor of the month metals. There was a lot of companies. It wasn't just a gold, silver, copper show. There was a lot of other metals there as well, lithium, uranium, rare earth elements, and those are really not in my wheelhouse, if you will. My wheelhouse is mainly focused on, or primarily focused on, um, gold, silver, and copper stocks. And so I was a little surprised that this year I wasn't able, for the first time in all the years I've been going as a market commentator, which I've been doing market commentary for 20 years, over 20 years now. It's the first show that I've gone to where I wasn't able to find a new company to cover. Now, I was really happy to see a lot of the companies that not only sponsor my work, but are also picks or I'm shareholders of at the show. So I got to check in with a bunch of those. And actually, when I talk about I'm going to talk about what I saw when I was at the conference of the picks I have. Um, and but yeah, I was surprised I wasn't able to find any new stories to cover. Now that could possibly be because I'm currently covering about 30 some companies. So I'm covering a lot of the best stories out there, in my opinion, at the various, whether they're explorers, developers, junior miners, mid-tier miners, or majors. But it was nice to see those people and talk to them, check out their booths. Also got to meet with some friends. I did find a couple new projects that I'm quite excited about, but those are in private hands, and I'm trying to do some wheeling and dealing, maybe to be involved with those somehow. Another really great thing I did at the PDAC is over the years, I've had the great pleasure to talk to brilliant geologists about rocks and stocks. That started back in the 1990s when I worked for a large geological consulting firm, and we would meet at lunch every day and talk about rocks and stocks. And that's kind of the nature of my show. I try to make my interviews much like those lunch meetings at the boardroom when we would talk about rocks and stocks every day. And I was really fortunate because in that team, we had Bob Darney, who's no longer with us, was a was a brilliant geologist. His nephew is the CEO of Origin Royalties that has done very well since I covered them. Then we also had Bob Singh, who is made famous by the great work he did in making the discovery for Great Bear resources. And but unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, fortunately, he made a lot of money being the VP exploration of Great Bear and has now retired almost entirely from the mining business. Makes me a little sad because I don't have a chance to talk to him as much as I used to about rocks and stocks. We used to talk pretty much daily for about 10 years. And so I miss those. Another team member of ours was Scott Weeks. He passed away much too young. He was a brilliant geologist and best friends with Bob Singh. And he and I and Bob, we kind of worked together on Red Star Gold, which then morphed into Heliostar, which is a company that I cover now, and they're doing great things. And we were very involved in West Red Lake, which is why I follow West Red Lake Gold very closely. And so then we also had Steve Todorak, who, after leaving the firm, went to work as sort of Rick Rule's geologist at the office, and he's now one of the largest brokers in the United States that also is very knowledgeable about rocks and stocks. So yeah, and then we had a lot of other geologists that came through the firm, and we were very fortunate to have quite a impressive team there. I forgot to mention Darwin Green, who's also a very talented geologist and really sharp on the corporate side of things, and he was also part of our team. So we had a tremendous team at that geological consulting firm, and they taught me a heck of a lot, and we had great conversations. But these days, one of my favorite geologists to talk about rocks and stocks is Denny Laviolette. How do I point to the? I think it's up there. There. Who's the CEO of Pirate Gold. And while I was at the PDAC conference, we had a couple chances to spend a good amount of time together, not just talking about pirate gold, but talking about rocks and stocks and strategic ideas and stuff like that. And as I was leaving our last meeting, I mentioned to him that I'm going to try and get up to Toronto more often, maybe once every couple months or so, to meet with sponsors, clients, picks and that sort of stuff away from the PDAC because everybody gets so busy there. And part of the reason is that I really love to sit down with someone like Denny Laviolette and talk about rocks and stocks. And we did that a couple times. That was lots of fun. All right. So that's sort of an update on my PDAC adventure. Since then, of course, everybody knows there's a war happening in the Middle East. The United States, Israel are fighting with Iran. I'm not going to get into all that, the war kind of stuff and my feelings on that, other than to say that war is expensive in lives and in money. And when you've got a country like the United States that is already overwhelmed with the amount of debt that they have and the cost of servicing that debt, adding that strain onto an already stressed system is not a good thing. I often look for canaries in the coal mine. And when you've got a stressed system, and you add stress to it, things start breaking. And we're starting to see, you if you do a little bit of homework on the private credit market, that is starting to have issues. Some of the smaller banks are starting to have issues. And this reminds me of the asset-backed commercial paper market that blew up in 2007, which was about a year before the 2008 economic crisis. So sometimes those black swans, if you will, are not exactly come out of nowhere, and you can get indicators of what's happening. And I'm paying attention to this private equity and small bankers issues and stuff like that, because you've already got the death spiral of debt made worse by the cost of servicing the debt. And quantitative easing has started. The new Fed chairman is going to want to slash interest rates back towards the free market era to appease his who appointed him, Trump. And I think this is going to set inflation off. Stagflation, real stagflation is already upon us, but I think it could get much worse. I've talked over the last year and a half to 2 years about the weak jobs market that just keeps getting weaker and weaker. So that is the reason that the Fed has started to cut rates. I think the new guy is going to slash them because yeah, the jobs market has slowed to a crawl. And these issues that are the war, the debt, all this is only making that worse. Another thing that I noticed a lot while I was gone was I sometimes when I do these trips, I have a chance to reflect on big picture things. And one of those big picture issues for me is artificial intelligence. And I use it a lot. I have a personal project I'm working on, and then I also use it in my research for my reporting. And so, as an extensive user, I've seen some of the issues with AI. But what I really was noticing while I was gone is just how much AI is being used these days to put out propaganda and incorrect information, and and then you've got to go to AI. I use Grok a lot to confirm if all of these, I can't even call them rumors, but these fake reports that are AI generated are accurate. And so what this will create is that all that activity takes a tremendous amount of compute power, and data centers are needed badly. And so as we go forward, because of the way that AI is being used and it's growing, it's just going to need more and more computing power. And that means more and more metals, copper, other metals that are important, more energy. Now you got this war, and the war, those warheads, they use a lot of copper and other metals. Silver is also very important. And so, that whole war, another thing that I'm observing from watching that is the issue at the Strait of Hormuz, which is affecting the oil market, but it doesn't, that narrow strait does not just affect the oil market. It also affects other commodities, helium, for example, and that are not getting through there. And some people, I think, believe that this war could be over quickly, and I hope it is, to be quite honest. But one thing that will not be as quick is the ramifications of the war and how that's affected the supply chain. And guess what that equals? More inflation. And so, what's a great hedge against inflation? Well, my favorite commodity is gold and also silver. And so, why don't I get into the charts now? I think I covered all the key topics I wanted to open with. So let's do a screen share. And I'm going to quickly go through some charts because I'm seeing some stuff that I think is really important to pay attention to. Just give me a second here. There we go. Share and share. All right. So let's start out with gold. Um, One of the key things that I think is really important when looking at gold, especially as a buy signal, is when it gets close to the 50-day moving average. Now, first of all, the 50-day moving average, the 200-day moving average have been doing this bottom left to top right for the past couple years. These are long-term bullish trends, but I would point out that every time it gets close to that 50-day, look at there, it bounces. I'm not going to count this one because that was a spike low on a daily kind of, that's not really a trend you can pay much attention to. But here, this one, these two here, look at the big move after that. Hold on, I just got to fix my screen here. Then this basing period that stayed right along the 50-day moving average and a big blast off from there. Same thing from this one. So I think we're at one of these important moments when gold gets down to the 50-day moving average. Nothing I see today changes my extremely bullish opinion on gold. I touched on some of those issues earlier, and I basically, until politicians start dealing with the broken fiat currency and debt system and do something about the death spiral of debt, I will be a perma bull and unapologetic perma bull at that because I don't see anything that's going to stop this bullish move, especially when you start considering China's actions, the BRICS nations loading up on gold. I think that we are returning to a gold standard of some form. What it will be called, I don't know. But a lot of central bankers are loading up on gold, and I don't think it's coincidental or I think it's mainly because of the broken fiat currency or debt system, and nothing's unbreaking that. In fact, if anything, they're doing all they can to break it even further into smithereens, if you will. And so I think that's very bullish for gold. Now, I also wanted to talk a little bit about these long-term trends that I pay attention to, the 200-day and a shorter term trend, which is the 50-day. Now, as I said, look at how they went. They've pretty much been going for a long time from the bottom left to the top right of the chart. Now, I want to bring up Bitcoin because I want to use it as an example of the exact opposite. So here it went through a death cross and look at how dramatically downtrending the 200-day moving average is, and also the 50-day moving average. Since it broke through that death cross, it has just been in a very bearish trend. And I think it's got more downside to it. I have no faith whatsoever in Bitcoin. I think that it has now reached a level where many of the Bitcoin miners are going to run into economic problems because it's trading for below the high cost producers price. And also, I think there is a data center war that's going to happen, and the Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies will lose that war to artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence has real world applications that can affect almost everybody, whereas Bitcoin is basically its only application is as a trading vehicle to hopefully go up in value. And that's about it. So that's the contrast of those two kinds of trends. This one's a bearish long term, whereas gold is a long-term bullish trend based on the fundamentals that are driving the movement of the 50-day and the 200-day. So, if you're looking for good buying opportunities, anytime it gets near the 50-day moving average seems to be a good time. And I think it's primed to go higher. This war is probably causing some concerns, but I think ultimately gold benefits from the inflation, and inflation is just getting worse due to this war. And I think that gold is a coiled spring ready to pop above its all-time high. Take a look at silver. Silver been doing some really interesting things, especially since June, when it broke out quite nicely. Uh, I talked about it ready to break above 3,500 well before, or $35 an ounce well before it did. And then talked about why I thought it would go above 40, which it did, and why I thought that the next big move was towards 100 and a series of new record highs, which it has done. But since this big and I want to say that a lot of this move here and this move was really leverage, a lot of paper leverage in the market. A lot of short-term traders were trading that spike, and that never lasts. But I'm quite impressed, and I often say that you can learn a lot by a trend looking at what happens after a big run and then the pullback, and you can learn a lot from those pullbacks. What I learned is that it stayed above $70 an ounce, and that the 50-day moving average is in a very bullish trajectory, as is the 200-day. Once this sort of volatility, subsides, I think we're onwards and upwards back towards $100 and higher. I called for 150 in 2026. I think I'll be adjusting that by mid-year. And so I'm really happy with what I see. The miners of silver also have to be very happy because this time last year they were selling their silver production for around $30, which was very close to the price that the high cost miners the margins were very tight. And now those margins over, well, since let's say Octoberish has been, basically at record highs. So this is very positive for the bottom line, but sometimes it takes a couple quarters for Wall Street and other analysts to pay attention because they need to wait to see a couple quarters of the higher price and what that looks like on the free cash flow for the gold miners or silver and gold miners. And so that's what I'm seeing on those metals. Let's quickly take a look at copper. I believe there's a huge things happening with artificial intelligence in copper, and when the Fed starts quantitative easing and stimulating, a lot of that money is going to go into artificial intelligence. They're going to need a lot more copper to meet those AI dreams and hopes and dreams. But I think ultimately, I talked about $7 um, an ounce was my our pound was my prediction for copper this year, and I think that's no problem, and I'll be adjusting that about mid-tier. Mid-year with gold, with silver, with copper. I'm sort of waiting for to see how it gets to $7 and beyond. And so before I adjust my call, same thing with gold, silver. I'm kind of waiting to see. Well, I saw how it went through $100 the first time, and that was really a highly leveraged kind of move that the leverage got washed out quite quickly. And I want to see how it goes through 100 this second time. And so I will adjust my call for 150 once I see how it goes through 100. And for gold, I'm kind of watching each $1,000 move now. I'm seeing 5,000. I think we're going to see 6,000 this year. I honestly believe that we might even see 7,000 this year. But first, I want to see how it goes through 6,000. Okay, so those are kind of my barometers, if you will, of what I'm looking for. Now, I want to also go back to the futures because I want to look at the Dow Jones Industrial Average. Um, this war has caused a pretty serious, a significant correction that actually even started prior to when it kind of topped out at 50,000 on the Dow. And it broke through the 50-day moving average and is right now trading at the 200-day moving average. And if anything, this chart is saying it's going lower, and that within the next 2 months, we could be seeing a death cross. Now, this could all change depending on what happens with the war. And it depends also on the appetite for um, valuations of investors. Right now and for a long time, the valuations have been very stretched relative to price to earnings ratios. And so the market was and maybe is not that far from trading at price for perfection levels. So got to see how if the market wants to keep pricing things for perfection after the war ends, how long the war is going to take. If it goes below the 200-day moving average, this 200-day moving average is a key thing I'm watching these days. If it breaks significantly through that 200-day moving average, we could see a lot more downside on the Dow and S&P 500, which I call the Wall Street stocks. It topped out here and sort of went sideways for a number of months. Then recently also broke through the 50-day moving average and is also trading at the 200-day moving average. So this is something that Wall Street investors want to pay a lot of attention to, as I am, because I think that it could affect how people run for safety, gold and silver and other things like that. We we also actually saw NASDAQ sort of peak before the war and is also now seeing the 50-day moving average rolling over and starting to trade more towards the Actually, it looks like it's closer to a death cross than the S&P 500 and the Dow Jones Industrial Average, but all of them are trading right on the 200-day moving average right now. Okay, so that's the stock market outlook. Um, let's take a quick look at crude oil at the West Texas WTI. As you can see, this is the war premium. Um, Depending on how long the war continues, went through a golden cross here. Um, anything's on the table. It could spike up to 150, 200 dollars depending on how long the war takes. Or if it's over quickly, it could drop, let's say down to 75-ish. But, ultimately, I think this action means inflation starts blasting off. And my favorite way to play inflation and stagflation for that matter is gold and silver stocks. So that's how I'm playing what's happening in the oil market, but definitely something every company, every industry has to pay attention, every economy, every consumer is paying a lot of attention to these days. So I am as well. All right, let's go back to the futures. This is interesting. The 10-year is going down, which means the yield is going up, which is contrary to what is perceived to be happening when the new Fed chairman comes in a few months. He and Trump want much lower interest rates. They want it to go back towards the free money era, but the bond market doesn't seem to be cooperating, and the yield is going up, which is against what they want to see with the interest rates by the Fed. So this is interesting. The price has gone down below the 50-day and the 200-day, which, and quite aggressively, it's just a few days before a death cross. It looks like it could have a lot lower to go. I'm the reporter here, folks. I'm looking at what I see in the trends, and that's what I'm seeing in the trends. And it certainly looks to me like the 10-year is going a lot lower, and the interest or the yield is going a lot higher. So this is a key argument of why I think the new Fed chairman will have to start getting even more aggressive on quantitative easing if he wants uh, to make Trump happy, but and Besant happy by seeing the interest rates much lower. So this is a key argument of why I think that the QE is going to be much more significant than what the Powell has already started in December. It's small so far. I think it could get a lot bigger. And, another indicator why you want to be bullish on the gold and silver. Now, let's take a look at the US dollar. So it's going up as partially, I think, because of the war, and it's a safe haven. I don't think it's a safe haven currency. I think the most safe haven currency is gold, and then silver. But I don't run the world markets on the currencies. And also another thing that is affected by this is that the oil market is still the petrodollar market. And so if you want to buy oil, you got to buy dollars first. And so I think that's some of the reasons. But the fundamentals for the US dollar, inflation, the death spiral of debt, cost of servicing the debt, quantitative easing about to come in, stagflation. None of these are bullish for the US dollar. So I think gold and silver will shine much brighter than the US dollar and other broken fiat currencies for that matter. which they're all pretty much broken. Another great bullish reason to be bullish on gold. And why are they broken? Because they're backed by debt. It's all fiat currency and debt system that's broken. And the best place to put your money when that's broken is in gold and silver and other commodities that people need on a daily basis. Okay, so now I've gone through my the trends that I wanted to talk about, but I also want to talk about something that when gold was recently running up to 5,500 and the silver was above 100, a lot of people were asking, well, are we in a bubble? And the reason that I kept on saying I don't think we're in a bubble, and I still maintain this, is that the gold and silver stocks have not really joined that bullish trend that we're seeing in gold and silver, not on a from a top to bottom type of a scenario. In fact, even at the top, which companies like of the food chain, companies like Newmont represent, I am ready to make a change to my majors. I have four majors that are picks. Agnico Eagle has been a pick that I made since that has gone up dramatically since I made him a pick in the first quarter of 2024. But I'm ready to put them into number two on my list. So in the description below, you're going to see a number one beside Newmont and a number two beside Agnico Eagle. Now, this doesn't mean that I don't think investors are going to do very, very well in Agnico Eagle. Tremendously well-run company, has very good controls on their costs. They're a low-cost producer. They're increasing their production. Lots of great things to talk about. But why I'm putting Newmont into number one, and I made them a pick way back here before they went through their golden cross, was about $40 a share, closed for, Friday at 109. So it's done very well. But that isn't why I picked it. I picked it because I saw that they were selling off their non-core assets and also fully integrating the Newcrest takeover into the company. And I felt that that would be very positive for the fundamentals of the company. But even after this big run, I believe that they are not only an example of what a great company that investors that want to be involved in gold, but want extra torque without a lot of downside risk, like an Agnico Eagle, that Newmont is now my highest priority pick. And it's all about the valuation. Okay. And so those steps that made me get bullish on Newmont have been transpiring in a big way. And those allowed them to focus on optimizing their uh, tier one mines. Now, of course, when you sell off all your tier twos, it's going to reduce your production. But they're actually making more free cash flow, partially because they're optimizing, but secondly, because of the price of gold going up so dramatically. Now, let's look at valuations. Earlier, I talked about the Wall Street stocks and how they were trading at not too long ago at price for perfection multiples to their earnings. So their price to earnings ratios were very stretched. In the case of Newmont, I'm not comparing their earnings. I'm looking at their free cash flow. Okay. Accountants can play games with the earnings. They can't play games with the free cash flow because that's what ends up on the bottom line of the company in the bank account. All right. So on a valuation basis of their free cash flow. In 2025, they had about 7.5 billion-ish of free cash flow. In the last quarter of 2025, they had 2.8 billion in free cash flow. All right. Now, that was based on selling gold at about $4,200 per ounce. All right. And if you used that price for all of 2026, they are currently trading at slightly above 10 times free cash flow. When the Wall Street stocks are trading at a premium based on price to earnings, not price to free cash flow. Newmont is trading at a over half the multiple of Wall Street stocks based on price to earnings in a price to free cash flow basis. Now, if you use the price that gold has been trading for the first quarter of 2026, now you use that for the rest of 2026 and don't even add any higher price. This company is trading at close to 5, 6 times free cash flow. That is phenomenal. And I think as Wall Street, because if the general institutional investors want to get involved in gold stocks, Newmont is a top of mind. So when they start looking at that free cash flow, I think the generalists are going to get into the Newmont in a big way, and I call it the Newmont effect because if generalist investors want to start investing in gold miners and they see what Newmont is doing, it gives them confidence down the food chain of other gold miners to look at and gold stocks. And so that's why I'm so bullish on Newmont. I haven't lost any of my optimism towards Agnico Eagle. Pan American Silver and Core Mining are similar to me to what I saw with Agnico Eagle in the first quarter of 2024 when I picked them. I saw that I thought that they would. I'm going to go back to gold here because I'm not going to talk about the stock charts anymore in this show. With Pan American Silver and Core, they give you that leverage to the silver price. And in the case of Pan American Silver, they're loaded up. I think they've got $1.2 billion in cash and only a couple $100 million in debt. So that's sort of my Agnico Eagle 2024 kind of story, but based on the leverage to silver. So I'm a big fan of Pan American. I'm a big fan of what Core Mining has done since they took over one of my picks, Silvercrest, and also they're buying new gold, and the Rochester mine is getting into hitting its groove. So yeah, that's my majors. My mid tiers, no changes to my mid tiers. They continue to be Alamos Gold, Aris Mining, Equinox Gold, and Orla Mining. Big fan of all of those companies. I think they offer you that leverage to the price of gold, but they're also increasing their production. In the case of Alamos, they're bringing their cost of production down. And so I think these are for the investor that wants even more torque than the majors, but willing to take on a little bit more risk. The mid tiers are a great avenue for that. I'd love to have a silver mid tier, but there really aren't a lot of them out there these days. And so the junior miners, I'm gonna start calling in the junior miners, Heliostar you're going to see a number one behind them, and the other two are tied for second place. Luca Mining and Sierra Madre Gold and Silver are doing great things. So I kind of, it's a flip of a coin, which you prefer on Luca Mining over Sierra Madre, but Heliostar, I had a chance to meet with them at the PDAC, and both Charles Funk and their IR guy, Rob Gray. And I really like what this company is doing long term, or even mid-term, or even shorter term. I think that this company is on its way to becoming a mid-tier, a small mid-tier, and maybe even a larger mid-tier. And so I'm a big fan of Heliostar. Um, my unicorn picks, Vizsla Silver, who's the sponsor of my reports, has gone through a very troublesome period. There was, if you're not aware, there was some kidnappings by their workers. I believe seven of them have been confirmed as having been murdered by the cartels. Three of them have still not been found. This has caused some concerns about the project and the company in a lot of people's minds. But in my mind, I think that this project is the most important undeveloped silver and copper project anywhere in the world. I think it's extremely important for the local economy around where it's located, the state and the nation of Mexico. And so that's what I'm seeing right now with Vizsla Silver. I'm very dismayed by the loss of lives. I've never really seen anything like this happen before in my 30 plus years in the business, especially on such an important project. And I hope those people that were murdered, their lives are not in vain. I live in Mexico and I know how important mining is to the country. And I know how special miners are considered throughout the country. The entire country is pretty much built on silver mining and other mining. And they have a very, the miners are held in very high esteem because they bring a lot of good jobs and a lot of good things into local communities. You're never good, these rogue activities by cartels are not something that you can really um, uh, affect. You can do everything you can to provide security. But I would also point out that this has never happened. The cartels usually leave the miners alone. So this is a very unusual event. And long term, mid term, I still believe that the Panuco mine is going to be an important job creator, an important economic benefit to the local, state, and nation. And so, yeah, but you have to keep those things in mind when you're looking at Vizsla Silver. McEwen Inc. is my copper unicorn, fabulous project. Had a chance to meet with Rob McEwen while I was in Toronto for the PDAC. I love their copper project. I think it's exactly what the world needs. We don't have enough copper discoveries, which means that the pipeline of projects that can be future copper mines is bare, or there's not enough in them relative to what's needed. And that doesn't, and that you also have to consider that a lot of the current mines are aging and are very old. And so that pipeline of development is super important, especially when you throw things like artificial intelligence, data centers, electric vehicles, alternative energy, building infrastructure in developing economies, fixing old infrastructure in developed economies, it's going to need a lot of copper, folks. And so uh, McEwen Inc. sort of has what Dr. Copper is ordering. So I'm very positive on that. Goliath Resources has the most important undeveloped copper discovery that I can find out there. And why I say that is I believe it's going to prove to be a long-lived mine of multi-million ounces. I've talked a lot about this company in the past. It is my highest conviction gold company with an important discovery. And I can't wait until their new drill season starts in the next few months. The stock is trading at a very bargain price uh, relative to what they've got, what they've hit, and how important it is of where it is in the Golden Triangle of British Columbia. So, big fan of Goliath Resources. Amex Exploration is a sponsor of my work. Had a chance to meet with Victor Cantore while I was at the PDAC. Had a great chat with him about the project, all the work that they're doing. Great company, really important, high grade project that is moving towards near-term production. And you want to do your homework on that. Another of my unicorn picks, my most recent unicorn pick is Newfound Gold. Had a chance to meet with them at the show and talk to their CEO, and we tentatively are planning to do the first interview with that company. And so I'm looking forward to that. Top of mind picks. I already talked about Pirate Gold. Yesterday, I did a whole show on them and their recent website update, or their new website and their new corporate presentation. So I invite you to check that out. Sterling Metals. I had a chance to sit down with their VP exploration and look over their drill core. And what was overwhelming to me was that, and I looked really closely at the core, was that it didn't really matter which rock package I was looking at. I was seeing a tremendous amount of sulfides in all the various rock packages. And I'm really excited about that. I think that there's some big system. Well, I think it's fair to say that there is a big system there, and it's very high grade with bornite and this sort of stuff. And yeah, I'm really bullish on Sterling Metals. And the same thing can be said for Kirkland Lake Discoveries. I sat down with their VP exploration, and I was really impressed with looking over the core with him. Again, lots of sulfides, copper system with the potential for gold as well, and orogenic gold, and a really strong management team. I enjoyed that conversation. Borealis Mining is emerging as a new junior gold miner in Nevada. And I'm very bullish on that. I own stock in that one. Take a look at Borealis. Foran Mining is not going to be on my top of mind picks for much longer because they basically tripled since I picked them about 9 or 10 months ago. And now they're getting taken over. And so they're going to disappear and enter into my personal Hall of Fame. A triple in a short period of time is a pretty good pick. And yeah, they're getting taken over. So Foran Mining will drop from my top of mind picks in the not too distant future. 9 Mile Metals has a very exciting new discovery of high grade copper in New Brunswick in one of the most important VMS camps anywhere in the world. And they're not getting a lot of love, even after they put out very good results. 22 holes with over 20 meters of 3.5 to 4.5% copper equivalent numbers. You know, that's pretty impressive stuff. And I think you want to take a close look at 9 Mile Metals. Norsemont had a good meetings with their management while I was there. Really happy with started picking them at about 60 cents. They're now well over a double or at a double. And they've got a lot of assay results pending. Big fan of that project. Blackrock Silver. I think it's a great for investors that want a growth story in silver stock. I think Blackrock Silver is a go-to company, and you want to take a look at them. West Red Lake Gold. I met with their geologist while I was there, and I'm going to do an interview with him because we got to talk about some of the targets that they're drilling, and I know the one that they have at the Rowan mine very, very well. Um, and we're planning to do an interview. I got to reach out to him actually now that I'm back in the saddle in my head office for Rocks and Stocks News. Um, so yeah, I'll get that together. Nuvau Minerals. I'm gonna do another interview with them because I think they've got one of the most important underappreciated land packages in the Abitibi region, 1,300 square kilometers. Until 2022, it had gone through about 50 years of mining. The last one in there was Glencore, and it didn't get the love it needed. Glencore was off frying bigger fish elsewhere. They did a deal with Nuvau Minerals. Nuvau has all that mining infrastructure that was kept in care and maintenance by Glencore. Plus, they've got tremendous exploration potential for gold. This is the Abitibi, and this huge land package was never really explored for gold because it was a long-term, multi-decade copper or base metal mining or project. And so now that Nuvo, a smaller junior, has it, and I've been able to talk to some of their key people about their plans for drilling, I'm really excited about their near-term plans to bring the base metals VMS deposits back into production, plus roll up their sleeves and do exploration on the gold front. My special situation picks are Earthlabs. They are a combination of having digital marketing assets, CEO.ca, the Northern Miner, things like that. Plus, they have a portfolio of juniors and developers, and they are very good stock pickers. And I think for a generalist investor that wants exposure to explorers, but doesn't have the knowledge or the time to learn about them, that Earthlabs is a good place to park your money and get that kind of leverage. Generation Mining is a new sponsor. I did an interview with them not too long ago, and I really want to do another one real soon because to me, they are a very undiscovered gem of a company that gives investors a very unique exposure to copper and palladium mining in Canada near Marathon, Ontario, right beside the Trans-Canada Highway and power lines and airports, the whole shebang. And they also have kickers of platinum and gold in there as well. And so I'm really excited to have them as a sponsor is they're about to go from developer into late stage developer and enter into that sweet spot before they get a chance to move up the right side of the Lassonde curve. So I'm really excited about generation mining, and I got to make notes for myself here, do another interview, toot sweet on generation mining. Okay, I already talked about my majors and my mid-tiers and my juniors. My gold and silver explorers with important high-grade discoveries only has two picks on it right now. One of them is going to be gone in the not too distant future because Dolly Varden Silver is being taken over. And then Southern Cross Gold is going to be the only one in that category. So, yeah, I'm going to have to. Uh, either move Southern Cross up to another category or find more for this category I call gold and silver explorers with important high grade discoveries. My developers continue to be Arizona Metals, Meridian Mining, and North Isle Copper and Gold. Arizona Metals is a turnaround story for me. I had a chance to sit down with them, and me and their geologist are going to get together and do an interview. It's another one I got to arrange post PDAC. Meridian Mining, great copper and gold project that is doing very well since I picked them. I think they were about 30 or 40 cents, and now they're much higher than that. North Isle Copper and Gold, got a lot of good things to say about North Isle Copper and Gold. I'm not the only one. Others are saying very good things, and they're getting investment from silver wheat or Wheaton Precious Metals. And I find this really interesting because Wheaton does a lot of great homework. That's their business is homework, and then getting royalties or mostly streaming deals off of mines where they put up capex to then get the stream for silver or gold. In the case of North Isle Copper and Gold, what's interesting is they have not done a streaming deal with them yet. They have done one with Generation Mining, by the way, that I talked about earlier. They have not done one with North Isle Copper and Gold yet. And they are an investor. That's very unusual for Wheaton. So pay attention to North Isle Copper and Gold. Argenta Silver sat down with, had a good chat with their CEO, Joaquin, and I looked over their core, and it's what I call wow core. Just amazing looking core. First of all, in silver exploration, you very rarely see native silver in the drill core, and they have that. Plus, they've got samples and core that is just off the charts high grade. I'm a huge fan of Argenta Silver. Not too long ago, I did an interview, really had a nice chat with Joaquin and their VP of Investor Relations, Vanessa, and at the PDAC. And like I said, it was what I call wow core. I would also say that Goliath Resources also has wow core. Amex Exploration has wow core. Other companies I follow have excellent looking core as well. And I always love the chance to be at the PDAC and look at drill core in my hand, not in pictures. Aztec Minerals, like what they're doing. Decade Resources, this is a new pick of mine, and I can't wait till they start drilling their Kamloops project. It's about 30 miles north of Kamloops, and Ed Krukowski he has a tremendous nose for gold. He's a great geologist, very well respected by serious geologists. And I'm very positive. I got to get another interview with Ed in the not too distant future, right before they start drilling. But I'm a big fan of Decade. Golden Cross Resources, you don't have to be in a rush to do your homework on them because let me get a drink. I'm getting a little dry from this long show. Um, and Uh, yeah, you don't need to be in a rush with Golden Cross because they're going to be starting some drilling soon, and it takes a while to get those assay results out. They have the thesis of why I picked them has not changed. In fact, think it's gotten better. So that's why I like Golden Cross. IDEX metals, I'm going to be moving them to my radar screen. So you're not going to see them in my Explorer picks. Inventus Mining, very bullish on Inventus Mining and their conglomerate project in Ontario, where they're doing bulk samples and they're actually making money off of those bulk samples. That's quite a unique scenario. Kootenai Silver, I'm moving into my radar screen. I'm not a fan of some of the recent management decisions of the company. So for now, I'm going to move them into my radar screen. Don't want to talk about that any further. Mithril Silver and Gold, another Mexico silver and gold explorer I'm very bullish on. Same with Pacifica Silver, also in Mexico, also very well, good, strong management team. Power Metallic Mines, I think that this is a very unique situation. High grade copper, other metals, polymetallic, really exciting story that's not getting its appropriate love right now. So take a look at power metallic metals or mines. Kimbaya Gold, um, they're on the verge of going onto the radar screen for me. The reason I cannot take them off my pick list is because they have not broken the thesis of why I originally picked them. The reason that they're kind of on the fence is because they're a couple months away from drilling and probably 4 to 6-ish months before they start getting some assay results from that drilling. So no rush on Kimbaya. Wolfden Resources is a real gem in the making. I love their projects in New Brunswick. They've got a large land package in New Brunswick. That's one of the top three DMS camps in the world, and they've got a huge land position there. But lately, they've been drilling in Nevada. And they're actually making thick hits of what you're looking for in that kind of a system. And yet, they're not getting the love that they deserve. So take a look at Wolfden. And the final company today is Chali Gold. Now I say it like a Mexican because that's how Mexicans say their name. It's actually spelled, eh, excuse me, XALI, and that's also their stock symbol. Now they were a struggling junior that was trading at 5 cents or lower when I picked them originally. And since then, they've been doing very well since the interviews that the past interviews that I've done with them. They're now trading around 30 plus cents. And why they've had a significant breakout is their CEO is Joanne Fries. And Joanne Fries was the QP geologist for Arequipa. That was a massive success in the 1990s, where they went from 30 cents to $30, were bought out by Barrick. Barrick turned it into a mine and made a ton of money off of that. But Joey had been sort of, since then, spending a lot of time in copper. And I was really excited to hear recently about her getting a gold project like Arequipa in Peru, where she has a lot of experience, where also Arequipa is located. And yeah, they got that project from Pan American Silver. Pan American Silver was not giving it any love. Now Joanne Fries will be doing that. She's been able to raise money to do that. And I'm really happy for Joanne because I've known Joanne for I probably shouldn't say because you're not supposed to talk about years when it comes with women, but I've known Joey for quarter of a century, and she's one of my favorite people in the mining business. So Take a look at Charlie Gold. Alrighty, folks, that is the end of the show. I'm gonna stop share. I gotta do my disclaimers. Pirate Gold is a sponsor. The disclaimer is in the description below. Read that, please. And they are now a gold sponsor and are a title sponsor and are appearing on all of my shows in the background and sometimes in the content I create. And so keep that those biases in mind. I also always say that I'm not making buying or selling recommendations. I'm merely an idea generator. Before you make any investment decision, you have to speak with your financial advisor. And I always end on do your homework. And if I give any advice, it is to do your homework because over my career, the ones that have done the best financially are those that are most well informed on the metals that their companies they're investing in are involved in and what their companies are doing. And I think that that's the kind of investor that you should be as well, to have your best potential to be a successful investor. And that doesn't just apply to mining. I've also seen that over my 30 plus years in the financial world, in other sectors as well. Be an informed investor. That is the best path to success. On that note, have a great day, and we will talk to you soon.